Hey everybody, Tim here with today's graphic novel review. Didn't do one last week. I tried to overreach a little bit, overestimated myself. So I decided to take just a little bit of a break from Transformers because I ended the first volume, getting ready to go into the second phase. So wanted to take a little bit of a break. And I had known about a comic for a while, and it was kind of nagging at me. So I finally reached out, got it, and it took me a little bit longer to read than I thought. Just, like I said, lots of personal stuff, started a new job and stuff. But for this week, we are doing Before Watchmen, the Omnibus Edition. Look at that cover, it's gorgeous. So, before I really start, I want to kind of talk about, like, my history with the Watchmen. So, I remember in, 2009, when the movie came out. To be honest, I had never even heard of the Watchmen before. Like, it never had pinged on my radar, didn't really know much about it. At that time, I wasn't really into comics even. And so, I was dating a girl at the time, and we went to the theater, and we were like, okay, so what do you want to see? And I was like, well, I mean, I think I've seen a trailer for that one. Like, let's just go. Because at that point, like, we were young, and we were just like, let's just see something. And so, we went in there. When we walked out, she absolutely hated it, but she didn't like superheroes to begin with, so I don't know why she agreed. But I loved it. I thought it was so amazing. I was just completely enamored by it. And the thing that really kind of got me was a lot of times I'll watch a movie or something, and even if I enjoy it, I can completely enjoy this movie, but when I walk out, like, I won't remember people's names and stuff. Because I have that trouble with detail, which is kind of why I started doing a lot of these reviews. And so I walked out and I was like, that was amazing. Like, that blew my mind. So I instantly, like the next day, found the graphic novel, which now I own, like, the absolute DC Watchmen. And it's gorgeous too. It's sitting on the shelf, actually kind of right behind this camera. And so absolutely loved it, thought it was great. And it amazed me how, like, similar but different they were. And I'll admit, like, I was actually a fan of Zack Snyder's change at the end, where it became, like, Dr. Manhattan's attack rather than, like, the giant squid. And I was like, that actually kind of works better for me. I really enjoyed that. And then, I mean, the Ultimate Collection, the Blu-ray came out, where it was the movie, but it was extended, and it had the animated special, like, intertwined in there of the pirate. And I was like, this is amazing. It just keeps getting better and better. And so, for a long time, and that was kind of like the start of my love for Alan Moore. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed into, like, From Hell, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, all sorts of stuff. So I was like, okay, so this is what it is. And I had heard about Before Watchmen, and I was like, no, like, why would you mess with something that's like just leave it alone. I mean, I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's such a great story by itself. Like, it doesn't need a prequel, it doesn't need anything. Just leave it alone. It's fine how it is. And so I just didn't even acknowledge it. I didn't care about it because. So by that time, let's see, the original Watchmen came out in 86. This one came out in 2012. So just to show you, like, how far, like, the Watchmen movie sucked me in. By 2012, when Before Watchmen was coming out, I had started working at a comic book shop. So 3 years later, and I'm like, I'm in. And I was like, no, it doesn't need to be a thing. It doesn't need to be there. So I just kind of ignored it. So a few more years go by. And now, up to 2019, and they do the Watchmen TV show. And when they had first announced it, I thought it was just going to be a retelling of the exact same story. And I was like, that's fine. Like, let's see what they could do with a TV show. And it wasn't. It was the sequel, and a little bit of a prequel. Like, it was kind of its own little thing. I fell so madly in love with it. I did reviews for that, so if you check the playlist, go down to Watchmen. Did all sorts of reviews. I've told some of this story already in the Watchmen review, but whatever. And so, absolutely loved that show. And that show kind of changed my mind. I was like, you know what? They did a really good job. And I completely admit, like, I was wrong. Like, I was so against anybody touching Alan Moore's project that I was like, it's fine how it is, leave it alone. They really went above and beyond with that TV show. I thought it was absolutely amazing. So I was like, okay, if I was wrong about that, like let's try this before Watchmen comic. And the first thing I noticed is it's massive. I mean, it is a huge book because there's a lot of different issues in here. I think, what did I write? Like 38 issues. Like I have so many notes. Yeah, it's like 38 issues altogether. So I'm not gonna go too much into it. Like if people want to comment and stuff, like I can go into more specifics. I'm briefly gonna just talk about each story and like what I kind of thought about it. The first thing that jumped out to me was, for one, for those who don't know or haven't heard, I absolutely love hardbound books. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a novel or if it's a graphic novel, whatever. I prefer a hardbound book. I don't do e-readers at all. I've tried with the iPad and I've tried all sorts of the Kindles. I can't do it. I tried so hard, especially graphic novels. Like, I like to look at the entire page all at one time. So, because at first I was like, oh, it's cool. I can look at one panel at a time. I just want to look at the whole page. And then I have a preference over hardbound over softbound paperback. But I mean, I'll read it. As long as I can hold it, I don't care. I'll read it for whatever. So that being said, by the time I just got this, so obviously it's been a while, I know that there's paperbound copies and it's only like 2 stories per thing. The first thing that stood out to me, like I said, 38 issues, they are all mixed together. Now, some of them actually flowed really well mixed together, especially when it comes to Ozymandias and Moloch, like their connections. That actually kind of worked for me, but for the most part, it kind of bugged me. Like, I would almost rather them have had every issue just boom, put together. Let me just read all 6 of this, and go. Or like maybe a chronological order type thing, because it's jumping all over the place. And I don't know, it just kind of took me out of it a little bit. So like I said, I'm going to just kind of briefly talk about each story. Minutemen 1 through 6. I don't know, it was pretty interesting. Like, I like Hollis Mason, the 1940s, and especially the Under the Hood thing. Like I said, a lot of great references to that in the TV show as well. And just kind of seeing all the younger characters, I want more Silhouette. Like, I wanted a Silhouette series. I think that would have been so much better. But the whole, like, subplot, now granted, I read this after watching the TV show. So, like, even though this came first, but the whole subplot of, like, them going after Silhouette's killer and Silk Spectre, like, saving the day with that. And, like, the Hooded Justice thing, because I had seen the show first, like, that's what I think of Hooded Justice now. But I was like, I don't like, I liked the original Watchmen more, where it's like, is he like this weightlifter? What's going on? And then he just disappears. I didn't like the evil thing going on. So that kind of bugged me a little bit. Silk Spectre, and like I said, just to point out how mixed up, the Minutemen in this are issues 1, 6, 13, 20, 25, and 30. Like, they're so everywhere. Silk Spectre, I actually loved that one. The art is great. I think it was Amanda Connor who does, like, Harley Quinn. But it's just a young Laurie, and just her, like, doing drugs with her boyfriend, the comedian making him leave, Holland saving the day. Like, the whole thing was just great. Like, that one was pretty enjoyable. It didn't add or subtract anything. Like, I read it, and when I was done, I was like, okay, like, that's kind of an interesting story. And then it was done. So that one's kind of I'm on par with. The comedian was interesting until I got to the end, which this is lots of spoilers, but this has been out for almost 10 years, so that's on you. Where, like, at first it was kind of interesting seeing, like, Eddie being friends with the Kennedys, and then I thought it was interesting where Eddie is basically, like, he's subduing somebody. I think it was Moloch, I don't remember who. And that's when they find out that Kennedy was shot, compared to, like, the movie where it's made to look like it was Eddie who shot him. So I was like, okay, so they're doing their own thing. That's great. Lots of the stuff in Vietnam didn't really, like, do anything. I was like, okay, like, it just seemed to be really, really drug out. And then, like, him, like, slaughtering the village, I was like, why? Like, it's interesting, but it's not doing anything. And then, of course, him like killing Bobby to like hide the secret. That's when I was like, okay, I'm done. So the comedian wasn't that great for me. Like it was beautifully like drawn and stuff, but it wasn't like the story itself was kind of a miss. Nite Owl was kind of interesting, just learning all about Dan's father, which we hear a little bit about because he was like super rich and everything, and then him like losing his virginity to the BDSM woman, and then kind of like the Rorschach sub story in Nite Owl, where he like it's the minister or whatever, because ministers are always scary anyway. As like I come from a very religious family, my grandfather was a minister, so reading this, I was like, oh, this is weird. What kind of gets me was that Dan is basically in love with this woman at the end. And I don't know, like I always kind of projected onto the story a little bit for the original Watchmen that like Dan and Lori were always kind of meant to be together. And like she was always the only woman for him. But I was like, realistically, like how many years, like how old was he before he even met her? So, like, yeah, I'm sure there's been tons of women and exes and stuff like that. So, I was kind of, like, wishy-washy on that one. Ozymandias was kind of a really interesting story. It was a really interesting drawn story. Like, their eyes are always like this. They're like that's how they look. But the whole premise of just him, like, playing dumb for his entire life, looking for hooded justice, but meeting the comedian, I wanted more of that because I mean you went through this whole hooded justice story with the Minutemen. Like where does Ozymandias tie into it? Him creating the castle, him working for Kennedy. Like I said, you see all of these stories start to combine a little bit. Creating his pet, and then kind of the last story where it kind of answers some unnecessary questions, like questions I never really thought of, where like he picks up Moloch from prison, the comedian finds the secret island, and like that's where he learns about everything. Because I mean, you watch the movie, you read the book or whatever, you know, like the comedian breaks into Moloch's house and is like, it's all just a fucking joke. But like you never know, like I don't, at least that I can recall, how he found that information out. So this says like he found the secret island that he swam to and got the answers, and it's like okay, but it was an interesting story. The Rorschach, I didn't like it. Like, just the whole villain, like, without a face, and the waitress on a date thing, and Rorschach just getting the shit kicked out of him for every single issue. It's one of my favorite artists, so it looks great. But, I mean, the whole thing just, I don't know. And then, like, Lowbrow, what was his name? Lowbrow? Whatever his name was. Like, ends up just getting killed out on the street. Rorschach doesn't even do it. So it's like, what's the point of the whole story? So I don't know, the whole thing just seemed really forced for me. Dr. Manhattan kind of had the most interesting story, where, like, he starts going through flashbacks, and then, like, once they start splitting the page, where on the left it's one story, on the right it's one story, you gotta flip it upside down, like, all sorts of stuff. Or is that the Ozymandias? That might have been the Ozymandias, where you flip it upside down. But, like, and then he finds out he's been in control of multiple, like, timelines and stuff. I was like, that's kind of interesting. I really do kind of like that. Just to kind of be like, oh, if I chose L or left, or if I chose right, and it just kind of goes back to the whole multiverse theory. So I really like that. And then again, towards the end, when he starts working with Ozymandias, we start to see the closure. Like, a lot of these stories start ending right when the Watchmen begins, because you see Ozymandias and Dr. Manhattan working together on the Squid Project in the Watchmen. So stuff like that was really interesting. I did love the Moloch two-parter, where it's just him being a drug dealer and a murderer, and Ozymandias meets him out of prison, turns him into a delivery boy, and then gets him to kill himself. Or, like, lets Ozymandias kill him. Like, that whole thing was really kind of interesting, and I'm assuming he only used Moloch because Moloch, like, killed his girlfriend in his own story, but we don't get any real, like, connection other than that. So I wanted, like, it's 2 issues, but I was like, that's what I want more of. I want more of that. The dollar bill story was rough. Like, it was interesting, but it was like, ooh, just, he's an actor who doesn't want to fight crime, gets his cape. No capes! He gets his cape stuck in a revolving door, and he dies. And I mean, we hear all about it in the Watchmen, in the movie, everything. And then Curse of the Crimson Corsair, like, I didn't care. Like, I loved the original Watchmen. Like, like that whole special, like reading it in the book is great, and then as well as in the movie where it's an animated special, it's great, especially like in the movie where it's an animated special and then it stops and it pans out and you see Bernard reading the comic. It's brilliant. This one didn't connect to me, and plus in the original Watchmen, like it has, like, it's an allegory for the Watchmen. Like, it just makes sense about, like, we try to do good things and we just make it worse. Like, it's hit it over the top on the head. Whereas this one, like, I don't know, unless I just didn't get it, because every time I got to it, I was like, I don't care. But it didn't seem as interesting. Where it's like, you got to put all these things together and we're free, and we put them all together and we made things worse. Like, I guess that's what they're trying to go for. I don't know. If you guys got it, you should let me know, because it went, whew, I didn't care for it. But, like, overall, I would say, I know that seems like I complained a lot, but overall, it was an enjoyable comic. I would definitely say, like, The Watchmen's great, the TV show's great. This is a little bit below. Like, it is a prequel. Like, it was a little bit rough at times. That being said, I know DC has, like, their new DC Watchmen crossover. It's like Doomsday Clock or something. Haven't read it. I'm curious for those who have. I know an omnibus is coming out soon with, like, all 12 issues or something. I don't think it's hardback. I think it's only softback, though, but whatever. I'm curious what people think of it. Like, should I give it a go? Is it not really worth it? Go ahead, let me know. I would love to see what your comments are, because I could probably talk about the Watchmen quite a bit. So, thank you guys for listening. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next week.